Have you ever wondered why someone can give you so much attention one moment only to disappear the next as if nothing mattered? That pull and push, that constant confusion, is the mark of someone who has mastered the art of playing the game. The so-called player seems untouchable, desirable, and always in control, but beneath that polished surface is not unshakable strength, it's fear. Fear of being vulnerable, fear of being seen, fear of choosing one person and risking disappointment. They hide behind charm and attention because it shields them from ever having to face the truth of their own insecurities. The truth is, a player doesn't chase love, they chase validation. Each new person is not about depth, but about proving something to themselves, that they are wanted, admired, pursued. It's not evil, it's survival. And yet, this very pattern keeps them locked in emptiness. No matter how many people they attract, they remain unsatisfied, because validation can never replace true connection. That's why the cycle repeats, and that's why so many get caught in their web, hoping to be the one who finally makes them stay. But here's what most people don't realize. You cannot outplay a player. You cannot win them over by trying harder, giving more, or chasing faster. That only feeds the very behavior you want to change. They thrive on the chase, and when you make them the center of your focus, you've already lost. The illusion is that their approval will bring you worth, when in reality, it is your worth that awakens their respect. If you want someone who has lived their life chasing shallow highs to finally see you differently, you must stop competing for attention and start commanding respect. Respect is the language they secretly crave because respect signals rarity, and rarity awakens value. A player may have endless admirers, but what they do not have is someone who refuses to be just another option. That is where the illusion begins to break. This is the doorway to commitment. Not through games, not through begging, but through showing a higher standard that cannot be bought with empty charm. When someone used to endless attention meets someone who will not bend, who will not lower their worth for temporary approval, something shifts inside them. For the first time, they feel the weight of what they could lose, and that feeling is far more powerful than the thrill of the chase. The reason you should keep listening is simple, because this isn't about changing who you are to please them. It's about discovering the strength inside you that makes real love possible. It's about no longer being trapped in confusion, no longer questioning your value, no longer settling for someone who only wants you when it's convenient. When you understand the illusion of the player, you free yourself from the endless cycle of uncertainty. And in that freedom, you hold the power to inspire the deepest commitment. Not by force, but by presence, by self-respect, and by emotional depth they cannot ignore. Stay with this message. Because the moment you see through the mask, everything changes. What once felt like power over you will dissolve, and you will realize the only power that ever mattered was your own. Chasing someone who thrives on being chased is like pouring water into a bottomless cup. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough. That's because the one who seeks constant pursuit is not searching for love. They are searching for the high of being wanted. The moment you run after them, you step into the role they expect. And in that instant, the balance of power shifts. You become the giver, they become the taker. And what was supposed to be mutual becomes one-sided. This is why you feel drained, confused, and undervalued. It's not because you lack worth. It's because you invested it in a game that was never designed for you to win. The human mind is wired to undervalue what is too easily available. It's a psychological truth. Scarcity makes us pay attention. Abundance makes us careless. When you make yourself endlessly accessible to someone who feeds on validation, you unknowingly strip yourself of the very impact you want to have. They stop seeing your presence as special because you've given it without cost. And when there is no cost, there is no appreciation. This is why chasing never works. It turns your worth into something ordinary, when in reality, it is extraordinary. Real attraction is not built by proving your value, but by showing that your value doesn't depend on anyone's approval. You are not someone to be won over by games, and you are not someone who bends under the pressure of attention-seeking behavior. The moment you stop running, the rules change. Instead of feeding their ego, you disrupt the pattern. You send a powerful message: I will not play where love does not exist. That message is more magnetic than any amount of chasing could ever be. When you withhold your energy from the endless cycle of pursuit, you create space for respect to grow. Respect cannot be forced, but it can be earned through strength, clarity, and self-worth. By refusing to compete for their attention, you stand out from everyone else who willingly enters the chase. You become the one who is not pulled into the chaos, the one who refuses to lose themselves in the game. And in that refusal, you create curiosity, because what cannot be easily owned becomes far more valuable. Think about the relationships that actually last. They are not fueled by desperation or constant pursuit. They are fueled by balance, by equal effort, by the recognition of shared worth. If you want someone to step out of the role of a player and into the role of a partner, you cannot mirror the behaviors that keep them stuck. You must be the disruption. You must be the one who refuses to chase, because chasing is the language of fear. Standing firm is the language of power. The reward for letting go of the chase is not only that you protect your dignity, but also that you reveal who truly deserves you. If someone only wants you when you're running after them, they were never going to choose you in the end. But if they lean in when you stop chasing, if they begin to invest when you no longer hand yourself over, then you've shifted from the role of option to the role of priority. That shift is the foundation of commitment. And it begins the moment you stop running in circles and start standing in your power. Respect is the key that unlocks everything. Without it, attraction is shallow and fleeting. With it, commitment becomes possible. A person who has lived their life as a player is used to testing limits, pushing boundaries, and seeing how far they can go before someone finally says no. And every time those boundaries are weak or absent, their respect vanishes. They may stay for the attention, but they will never stay for the long term. What makes someone truly pause, what makes them stop and reevaluate, is encountering a standard they cannot ignore. Standards are not about ultimatums or control. They are about self-worth expressed in action. They are the invisible line that communicates what you will and will not accept. And here is the truth. No one commits deeply to someone they cannot respect. You can be attractive, charming, generous, even loving, but if you lack standards, you become replaceable. When you allow behavior that disrespects your value, you teach others that your value can be negotiated down. But when you stand firm, when you show that you're willing to walk away rather than accept less than you deserve, you shift how you are seen. The psychology is simple. People value what they earn. They value what requires effort. They value what cannot be taken for granted. A player who has grown accustomed to easy admiration is shaken when they meet someone who will not hand it over freely. That disruption sparks something deeper, because it forces them to confront the difference between casual attention and genuine investment. It awakens the possibility of loss, and with loss comes the awareness of true value. This is not about playing hard to get because games breed more games. It is about embodying the truth that your worth does not decrease just because someone else refuses to rise to meet it. Standards are not walls to keep love out. They are filters that allow only the right kind of love in. And once you understand that, you stop fearing whether someone will commit and start focusing on whether they are capable of meeting you at your level. The shift is powerful. You move from asking, will they choose me, to asking, are they worthy of the space I've created in my life? That single change in mindset transforms the entire dynamic. It takes you out of desperation and into clarity. It stops the endless cycle of waiting and hoping, and it places the power back in your hands. Because the truth is, you are not here to beg for love. You are here to choose love that aligns with your worth. When your standards are clear, you attract a different response. Some will fall away, unwilling to rise to the level you demand, and that is not loss, it is protection. It saves you years of wasted energy on someone who never planned to give you what you deserve. But those who remain, those who recognize and respect your boundaries, are the ones who begin to shift. Respect becomes the bridge to deeper connection, and from connection comes the willingness to commit. So never lower what you know to be true about your worth. Never trade your standards for the illusion of attention. The only way to inspire someone who has lived for the game to step into something real is to show them that you are not a game at all. You are the standard, and it is up to them to rise or to fade. And when they rise, that is when commitment is no longer just a possibility. It becomes the only choice they are willing to make. Surface-level attraction will never hold someone who has lived their life chasing novelty. The thrill fades, the attention wears off, and they move on to the next distraction. That is why so many people exhaust themselves trying to keep a player interested, mistaking performance for connection. But no performance will ever compete with the one thing they cannot find in fleeting encounters: emotional depth. It is the depth of your presence, the depth of your understanding, the depth of your energy that cuts through the mask and reaches the part of them that is rarely touched. A player is used to charm in games. They are used to being admired for what they project, not who they are. But beneath every mask is a person who longs to be seen without pretending. The walls they build are not only to keep others out, but also to protect themselves from the fear of being truly known. When you bring emotional depth into the connection, you stop interacting with the mask and begin reaching the human underneath it. And that shift is what makes them pause, because depth feels unfamiliar, yet undeniable. Psychologically, we are all drawn to where we feel understood. Attention excites us, but understanding grounds us. It creates a sense of safety, a sense of belonging that no amount of surface-level admiration can ever match. When you offer that, you're not just another admirer. You become an anchor. And anchors are what people cling to when they are tired of drifting. For someone who has lived in the chaos of temporary highs, this becomes magnetic because it offers a peace they didn't even know they were searching for. But emotional depth does not mean oversharing. It does not mean pouring out everything at once, and it does not mean carrying someone's baggage for them. It means being present in a way that shows clarity, listening with genuine attention, and engaging with honesty that goes beyond superficial words. It means you communicate not just with your voice, but with the strength of your boundaries and the steadiness of your actions. That combination is rare, and rarity awakens value. When you cultivate emotional depth, you remove yourself from the category of just another option. You move into a space where your presence is irreplaceable because it creates an experience they cannot find anywhere else. You show them that there is a life beyond the game, a life where connection is not about who wins or loses, but about who is willing to be real. And realness is something a player cannot counterfeit, no matter how skilled they are at appearances. This is why emotional depth becomes the game changer. It interrupts the cycle of endless pursuit and replaces it with something lasting. It makes them realize that attention is cheap, but connection is priceless. It stirs a part of them that craves stability, even if they have spent years running from it. And once they feel that difference, they begin to see you not as someone to play with, but as someone to protect, to respect, and eventually to commit to. Depth is the bridge between attraction and devotion. It is what transforms curiosity into care and care into loyalty. And if you want to inspire someone to leave behind the empty games and step into something real, depth is where it begins. Because while anyone can offer attention, very few can offer the experience of being truly seen. And that experience is unforgettable. Time alone is not what makes someone valuable. It is the energy they carry, the presence they bring, and the way they choose to share it. Too many people confuse availability with connection, giving endless hours while draining themselves dry, only to discover that time offered without boundaries loses its weight. What truly awakens commitment is not how often you are there, but how carefully you protect the energy you allow someone to access. A player can find attention anywhere, but when they meet someone who does not hand over their energy without thought, they begin to recognize the difference between casual access and sacred presence. Energy is currency, and those who spend it recklessly often feel empty, unappreciated, and unseen. The more freely you give it to someone who has not earned it, the more they assume it costs nothing. And when it costs nothing, it becomes invisible. This is why being endlessly available does not inspire commitment. It reduces impact. But when you understand that your energy is scarce, that it is precious, that it is not for everyone, you immediately set yourself apart. You are no longer another source of validation. You become a presence they cannot take lightly. Psychology tells us that scarcity heightens value. When something is rare, it awakens focus, effort, and desire. The same is true of your energy. When someone realizes that your emotional availability is not infinite, they start to treasure the moments they have with you. They lean in, they listen more, they feel more, because they know it cannot be taken for granted. That shift creates a space where respect grows, and with respect comes the possibility of commitment. Protecting your energy does not mean closing yourself off. It means being intentional with where and how you give it. It means knowing that every message you answer, every conversation you allow, every moment you spend carries weight. If those moments are given to someone who does not appreciate them, you drain yourself for nothing. But if they are given selectively, they create impact. And impact is what leaves a lasting mark. For the one who plays games, the scarcity of your energy becomes a mirror. It forces them to see the difference between people who flood them with attention and someone who chooses carefully. And choice is powerful. Choice communicates value. Choice makes them realize that being in your presence is not guaranteed, it must be earned. That realization awakens something deeper than the chase. It awakens respect and a hunger to hold on to what feels rare. When you begin to live this truth, everything shifts. You stop giving yourself away cheaply. You stop tolerating connections that drain you. You stop pouring into people who refuse to pour back. Instead, you step into alignment with your own worth, and in doing so, you inspire others to rise. Those who are only there for validation will fall away because they cannot feed on what you no longer offer. But those who are ready for something real will step forward because they sense the depth and the rarity of your presence. This is how energy becomes the currency of commitment. It is not the endless hours spent proving your devotion. It is the guarded, intentional, powerful way you choose to give yourself only where it is honored. And when someone realizes they cannot have unlimited access to your energy, they begin to see you not as a fleeting distraction, but as someone they cannot afford to lose. The deepest magnet you can ever carry is self-worth. It is not the clothes you wear, the words you say, or the strategies you use. It is the unshakable belief that you are enough, that you deserve respect, and that you will not trade your dignity for temporary attention. A player thrives when others seek their approval, but the moment they encounter someone who does not need it, the game begins to unravel. Self-worth communicates what no amount of chasing ever could. That you are complete within yourself, and that anyone who wants access to your life must bring more than empty charm. When you move through the world anchored in self-worth, you stop shrinking to fit into someone else's comfort zone. You stop tolerating behaviors that insult your value. You stop lowering your standards in the hope that someone will rise to them. Instead, you carry yourself as though you already know the truth, that you are worthy of love that is loyal, steady, and real. That energy is unshakable, and it is magnetic. It pulls in those who are capable of meeting you at that level, and it repels those who are only looking for someone to play with. Psychology shows that people instinctively respect those who respect themselves. When you show through your actions that you will not settle, you awaken admiration. Even those who are used to getting their way begin to step differently around you because they sense they cannot control you, cannot manipulate you, and cannot make you bend. And that shift in dynamic is what cracks the illusion of the player. They realize they are not dealing with just another admirer. They are dealing with someone who demands to be taken seriously. Self-worth is not arrogance. It is not about believing you are better than others. It is about knowing that you do not need to be chosen to have value. It is about standing firm in your truth even when someone tries to test your strength. It is about choosing yourself first, not out of selfishness, but out of recognition that you cannot build healthy love on a foundation of self-abandonment. Every time you honor your worth, you reinforce it. Every time you compromise it, you weaken it. When someone who is used to endless validation encounters a person grounded in self-worth, they face something rare. For the first time, they cannot rely on charm alone. For the first time, they cannot win by taking. For the first time, they are required to give, and that requirement reveals their true capacity. Some will walk away, unable or unwilling to meet you where you stand. Let them go. That is not rejection, that is protection. It clears space for someone who can rise to your level, and then there are those who will feel the difference and lean in. They will sense the security that comes from your presence, the way your strength commands respect without needing to demand it. They will begin to understand that being with you is not about a game to be won, but about a partnership to be honored. That realization can shift even the most restless heart, because it awakens the truth that real commitment does not come from conquest. It comes from respect, and respect is born from self-worth. Your greatest power is not found in trying harder to keep someone's attention. It is found in embodying the truth that your worth is not negotiable. When you live from that place, you do not just inspire commitment, you redefine what love must look like to be allowed in your life. Strength is not only shown in how high your walls are, but also in the peace you bring when others stand near you. For someone who has built their life on games and fleeting connections, drama has become the norm. They are used to intensity without stability, passion without peace, attention without trust. But the truth is, no one commits to chaos. They may indulge in it, they may seek it for the thrill, but commitment requires something deeper, emotional safety. It is the place where someone can finally exhale, where they no longer have to perform, and where they feel free to be seen without fear of judgment or rejection. The irony is that many people believe drama keeps attraction alive. They think unpredictability, jealousy, or constant tension will make someone stay. But tension exhausts, games drain, endless conflict erodes trust. What awakens lasting devotion is not the constant rush of instability, but the steady ground of emotional safety. Safety is not weakness, it is strength in its purest form. It is the kind of strength that says, you will not find chaos here. You will find clarity, honesty, and peace. And for someone who has lived in the storm of shallow connections, that kind of peace becomes magnetic. Psychology shows us that the human nervous system naturally gravitates toward places of regulation. We are drawn to what calms us, to what allows us to let our guard down, to what makes us feel seen without needing to perform. Emotional safety does not eliminate passion, it amplifies it. Because passion rooted in safety is not unstable, it is unbreakable. It does not burn out with the next distraction. It deepens, grows, and becomes something worth protecting. Creating this safety begins with you. It is reflected in how you communicate, in how you respond to conflict, and in how you hold your boundaries without anger or chaos. It is seen in your ability to remain steady instead of reactive, firm instead of frantic. When you stand in that space, you become a refuge in a world that constantly demands masks and performances. You become the person who doesn't just give attention, but gives something far more rare, the freedom to be real. And when a player encounters that, they cannot ignore it. They may resist at first because safety requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is what they fear most. But over time, the contrast becomes undeniable. They will notice the difference between shallow flattery and genuine connection, between temporary thrill and lasting peace. They will begin to crave what they cannot find elsewhere, the stability of someone who refuses to play the game. This is not about fixing them or healing their wounds for them. It is about showing what life can feel like when games are replaced with truth. Your presence becomes a mirror, reflecting back what they've been running from, and at the same time, offering what they've been searching for. And in that space, commitment stops feeling like a trap. It begins to feel like freedom, because it is the first time they have found someone who offers both depth and peace. When you embody emotional safety, you no longer need to demand loyalty. It becomes the natural response. Because no one walks away from a place where they finally feel seen, valued, and at peace. Emotional safety is not only the end of the game, it is the beginning of real love. Independence is the quality that transforms how someone sees you. Dependence may create attachment, but it rarely creates admiration. When someone feels that your happiness, your sense of identity, or your future is tied entirely to them, the dynamic shifts in a way that breeds imbalance. The one who is depended on feels a sense of control, while the one who depends feels the constant fear of loss. This imbalance is exactly what keeps a player from committing, because they thrive on control but resist responsibility. They want the validation without the weight of obligation. Independence breaks that pattern because it communicates without words that you are not here to be owned, you are here to be chosen. True independence is not coldness, detachment, or pretending not to care. It is the confidence to stand as a whole person, knowing you can share your life without needing someone to complete it. It is the refusal to make another human being the sole source of your joy, your stability, or your identity. And that truth is magnetic because it shifts the power. It shows that your presence in someone's life is not about survival, but about choice. You are there because you want to be, not because you must be. And that choice carries far more weight than dependency ever could. Psychology reveals that people respect what they cannot control. When someone senses that you are fully capable of walking on your own, fully capable of creating your own happiness, fully capable of building your own future, they are compelled to view you differently. You stop being a piece in their game and start becoming a partner they must rise to meet. Independence makes it clear you are not an option to be played with. You are an equal whose presence enriches but does not depend. This creates an entirely different experience for the one used to games. They are accustomed to others bending, adjusting, and shrinking to hold on to them. They are accustomed to control, but independence removes that control. It leaves them with only two choices: respect what you bring or lose it. That clarity forces them to confront the value of what stands before them, and it often awakens the very desire they've spent years avoiding, the desire to commit to something real before it slips away. But independence also protects you. It ensures that no matter what happens, you never lose yourself. You never fall into the trap of believing your worth depends on whether someone chooses you. You never sacrifice your goals, your peace, or your identity for the sake of someone else's attention. And that protection is priceless because it allows you to love without fear. You can give fully, you can connect deeply because you know you are not defined by their choices. This strength is what makes you unforgettable. When you embody independence, you do not need to demand respect. It naturally arises. You do not need to chase commitment. It becomes the logical response. Because what person would want to let go of someone who stands in their own power, yet still chooses to share it? That combination is rare, and rarity is what transforms temporary attraction into lasting devotion. Independence is not about distance. It is about dignity. It is about saying with every action that you will not abandon yourself to keep someone else. And when a player encounters that kind of strength, they realize that the game is over. What remains is a choice: rise to meet you or step aside and watch you walk forward without them. Predictability may feel safe at first, but over time it dulls desire. When every response is expected, when every move is obvious, when every interaction feels rehearsed, curiosity fades. Human beings are wired to crave a balance of security and novelty. Too much chaos breeds anxiety, but too much predictability breeds boredom. This truth is especially magnified in someone who has lived chasing the highs of fleeting attention. If they can anticipate every reaction, if they know you will always respond the same way, the excitement that keeps their interest alive disappears. That is why healthy unpredictability is so powerful. It reignites curiosity without creating drama. Unpredictability is not about playing games or creating insecurity. It is about refusing to be a script someone can easily read. It is about surprising with your growth, your choices, your energy, and the way you continue to evolve. It is about being dynamic rather than static, alive rather than mechanical. When you bring this energy into a connection, you prevent yourself from being taken for granted. Instead of becoming another predictable source of validation, you become someone who keeps them engaged on a deeper level. Psychology shows us that anticipation heightens value. The brain releases dopamine not just in moments of reward, but in moments of anticipation. When someone cannot always predict how you will respond, when they know you're not going to hand yourself over in the same way every time, they begin to anticipate. That anticipation builds focus, attention, and desire. It creates a mental imprint that makes your presence harder to forget because you are not just another repeating pattern, you are an experience. The mistake many make is confusing consistency with predictability. Consistency is essential because it creates trust, but consistency does not mean sameness. You can be consistent in your values, your respect, your boundaries, while still being unpredictable in your expression, your creativity, and your energy. That balance is what keeps a connection both safe and alive. You are steady in your foundation, yet never stagnant in your growth. And that combination awakens a commitment far deeper than drama ever could. For someone who is used to the thrill of the chase, meeting a person who is grounded yet unpredictable becomes a turning point. They realize they cannot fully grasp you, cannot completely predict you, cannot ever assume they have you all figured out. That realization keeps their attention alive, but more importantly, it inspires respect. Because unpredictability rooted in authenticity is not manipulation. It is the natural byproduct of living fully, of refusing to shrink into predictability for the sake of being accepted. This quality also reminds them that your life is bigger than the connection. You are growing, evolving, exploring, and they are witnessing a journey rather than clinging to a static image. That vision makes commitment more appealing because it promises depth that will not fade over time. It shows them that being with you will never mean stagnation. It will mean expansion. Healthy unpredictability does not push someone away, it draws them closer. It reminds them that your presence is both grounding and exciting, stable yet alive. And when that balance is felt, it begins to replace the shallow highs they once sought. It shows them that real love does not have to mean boredom, and commitment does not have to mean loss. Instead, it becomes the most captivating adventure they will ever choose. Respect is the foundation that transforms fleeting attraction into lasting devotion. Without it, no amount of charm, beauty, or strategy can hold someone's heart. A person may stay for a while out of desire, convenience, or ego, but if they do not respect you, they will never fully commit. Respect is not demanded through force or manipulation. It is earned through the way you carry yourself, the boundaries you uphold, and the standards you refuse to lower. When you embody self-respect, you teach others how to value you. Many lose themselves chasing commitment by overgiving, over-explaining, or overcompensating, believing that sacrifice will inspire loyalty. But giving yourself away too easily only reduces your perceived value. Psychology shows that people place higher worth on what they must work to earn. When you make it clear that your love, your time, and your presence are privileges, not entitlements, you awaken something deeper in the other person. They begin to understand that winning your heart is not just about charming you, it is about rising to meet the standard you have set for yourself. Respect is reinforced by consistency. If your words say one thing but your actions show another, your credibility erodes. If you declare strong boundaries but abandon them at the first sign of pressure, you teach them that your limits are negotiable. But when your actions match your words, when your standards remain intact even when tested, you become someone they cannot dismiss. That consistency builds trust, and trust is the soil where commitment grows. It is not about being harsh or cold. True respect is not born out of fear. It is born out of admiration. It comes from the realization that you live by principles rather than impulses, that your life has structure, depth, and purpose. This creates a natural gravity around you. The player who once thrived on chasing what felt unattainable realizes that your worth is not in playing hard to get. It is in actually being someone of substance, and substance commands respect far more than games ever could. When respect is present, the dynamics of the relationship shift. The one who is used to control or superficial power suddenly feels inspired to show up differently. They know that with you, shortcuts will not work. They cannot rely on empty promises, half-hearted effort, or temporary excitement. They are confronted with a choice: either rise to match the standard you embody or risk losing something rare and irreplaceable. And for many, that confrontation becomes the very catalyst for transformation. Respect also deepens intimacy. When someone respects you, they listen more carefully, they consider your needs, they honor your boundaries, and they treat your heart with care. Respect turns love from something shallow into something sacred. And once someone has experienced that level of depth, it becomes difficult to settle for anything less. This is why respect must never be compromised. You may attract without it, but you will never build something that lasts. Respect is what makes a player pause, reflect, and begin to see love not as a game, but as a commitment worth giving everything to. And when that shift occurs, what once seemed impossible becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Respect creates the space for love to grow, but self-worth determines whether that love will last. If you do not see yourself as valuable, you will unconsciously teach others to undervalue you. You may tolerate crumbs when you deserve a feast, or accept inconsistency when what you truly long for is devotion. This is why every relationship you attract is a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. The moment you decide that your heart is priceless, you naturally stop settling for anyone who treats it carelessly. Self-worth is not arrogance. It is not about believing you are above others. It is about recognizing that your time, your love, and your energy are sacred resources that cannot be squandered. Psychology reveals that people mirror the way you treat yourself. If you constantly diminish your own value, they will too. If you carry yourself with quiet confidence, they will feel it. Confidence is magnetic, and it draws in those who are ready to rise to your level. There's a silent power in someone who knows their worth. They do not chase, they do not beg, and they do not settle for being an option. They move with the unshakable certainty that anyone meant to be in their life will recognize the privilege of being there. And this certainty does not repel love, it amplifies it. because nothing captivates the human heart more than someone who doesn't just demand respect, but embodies it so completely that respecting them becomes the only natural response. This is where transformation begins, even for someone who has lived as a player. A person who once thrived on surface-level validation is confronted with something they cannot manipulate, a standard rooted in genuine self-worth. They realize they cannot break through with charm alone. They must show up differently, because for the first time, they see a love that cannot be bought, tricked, or taken for granted. It must be earned, and in the process of earning it, they are forced to grow. When you know your worth, you stop fearing loss. You understand that walking away from someone who doesn't value you is not a failure, it is a victory. It is the clearest statement that you refuse to betray yourself for the comfort of temporary affection. That kind of strength not only protects your heart, it inspires respect at a level that is almost impossible to ignore. Even those who once played games will find themselves drawn into the gravity of that strength, because it speaks to a truth they cannot deny. Deep down, they want someone who demands the best from them. Self-worth is not only the key to protecting yourself, it is also the foundation of real love. Because when you know your value, you do not enter relationships from a place of need or fear, you enter from a place of abundance. You give love freely, not to prove your worth, but because your worth is already established. That kind of love cannot be diminished, manipulated, or destroyed. It is steady, grounded, and transformative. And when someone experiences love rooted in true self-worth, it changes the game. What once felt like a casual encounter becomes an awakening. The player sees that real intimacy is not about winning or controlling. It is about rising into the rare gift of a love that feels both unshakable and infinite. Strength does not come from what you demand of others, but from what you require of yourself. The greatest shift happens when you realize that love cannot complete you, it can only amplify who you already are. If you enter it with emptiness, you hand someone else the power to fill or drain you at will. But when you enter with fullness, love becomes an overflow rather than a lifeline. You are no longer clinging to someone for validation. You are inviting them to share in a life that is already rich in meaning. The mind has a way of convincing you that being chosen is proof of worth. Yet psychology shows that chasing external validation often leads to dependence, leaving you vulnerable to disappointment and manipulation. Real freedom comes when you choose yourself first, when you no longer wait for permission to feel valuable. That decision changes everything, because once you see yourself as enough, the fear of rejection loses its grip. You stop shrinking to fit into spaces too small for you, and you begin to expand into the life you were always meant to live. Love built on desperation collapses under the weight of insecurity, but love built on self-respect grows stronger with time. It is no longer about controlling the outcome or clinging to someone's presence. It becomes about shared growth, about two individuals who both know their worth and choose to elevate each other. And when two people meet from that place, the bond is unshakable. There is no power struggle, no fear-driven games, only a mutual recognition of value that inspires both to become greater versions of themselves. This is why your personal standards matter more than any external advice about relationships. They are not barriers that keep people out. They are signals that attract the right ones in. Every boundary you set is a declaration that you refuse to betray yourself. Every standard you uphold is a filter that separates those who come to take from those who come to give. And this clarity does not repel love, it refines it. It ensures that only those capable of real commitment, real respect, and real depth make it past the gates of your heart. The transformation lies not in making someone else change, but in changing the way you show up for yourself. Because when you stop playing small, others either rise to meet you or fall away. This is not loss, this is alignment. Those unwilling to honor your worth are simply being removed to make space for the one who will. And the one who will is not intimidated by your strength, they are drawn to it. They are challenged by it. They are awakened by it. The truth is, love cannot thrive where fear dominates. Fear clings, fear manipulates, fear accepts less than it deserves. But love rooted in self-worth liberates. It creates space for honesty, for devotion, for a depth that cannot be shaken by temporary storms. This is the kind of love that does not just soothe your heart, it sharpens your soul. It calls you higher. It demands the best from you, and it gives the best in return. And once you experience that level of love, you realize that anything less was never love at all. It was merely a distraction, keeping you from the greatness you were destined to experience. The moment you decide that your worth is not negotiable, everything begins to shift. The way you walk into a room changes, the way you carry yourself changes, the way people respond to you changes. Energy never lies, and when you radiate certainty in who you are, you create an undeniable presence. This presence does not come from arrogance or pride. It comes from an unshakable knowing that you are whole, even without anyone else's approval. That kind of energy is magnetic because it speaks a language deeper than words. It speaks the language of truth. So many people exhaust themselves trying to be enough for someone else, reshaping, overgiving, tolerating what slowly breaks them just for the illusion of being loved. But the harder you chase, the more love slips through your fingers because desperation weakens the bond rather than strengthens it. True connection does not bloom in a space of fear. It blooms in a space of freedom. Freedom to be real, freedom to be flawed, freedom to stand tall in your essence without begging to be accepted. When you live in that freedom, you stop confusing intensity with intimacy. You stop mistaking inconsistency for passion. You stop allowing chaos to disguise itself as chemistry. You learn that real love is not about highs that leave you anxious and lows that leave you shattered. It is about stability that empowers you, consistency that protects you, and honesty that builds you. It does not leave you questioning your value. It reminds you of it daily. It does not drain your spirit. It multiplies your strength. And this is the turning point, the realization that you will no longer settle for fragments when you were designed for wholeness, that you will no longer silence your needs for fear of being too much, because the right person will never see your needs as a burden, but as an invitation to love you more deeply, that you will no longer apologize for being strong, because strength is not intimidating to the right heart. It is inspiring. It does not drive love away. It draws the right love closer. The psychology of attraction is clear. People are drawn to certainty, to self-respect, to confidence that does not shout, but simply exists. When you embody this, you stop auditioning for places at tables where you were never meant to sit. You stop performing for love and start living in alignment with it. And this alignment is where transformation begins, because once you realize you are no longer available for half effort, half truths, or half love, you make space for something extraordinary to enter your life. This is not about being hard or unapproachable. It is about being anchored in your values, anchored in your truth, anchored in the deep belief that you deserve a love that matches your soul. And when you are anchored, you cannot be easily moved by shallow words, empty promises, or temporary attention. You no longer bend to stay in places that do not honor you, because you would rather stand alone in dignity than crumble in the arms of false affection. And when you carry yourself with that kind of conviction, the universe has no choice but to respond. It will either remove what was draining you or align you with what was always meant for you. Because the truth is, love at its highest form is not something you chase. It is something you allow. It flows naturally to the one who finally understands that they are already whole. The moment you stop seeking validation outside yourself, you step into a freedom most people will never taste. That freedom is the foundation of real power, because nothing and no one can control a heart that has chosen to belong to itself first. When you realize that worth is not something granted by another person's acceptance, but something that is woven into your being, you move differently. You stop negotiating your identity. You stop chasing what diminishes you. You stop clinging to what only survives when you are small. The mind craves patterns, even unhealthy ones, because they feel familiar. That is why so many repeat cycles of pain. They confuse comfort with safety and familiarity with love. But when you decide to break that cycle, you step into discomfort that is necessary for transformation. Growth always feels like friction at first, because your old self resists the shedding. Yet every time you choose truth over illusion, alignment over approval, your nervous system learns a new rhythm. It learns that peace does not mean boredom, that calm does not mean emptiness, and that love can be both steady and powerful. To demand more from life, you must first demand more from yourself. Not in perfection, not in performance, but in the courage to refuse what does not honor your soul. The boundaries you set are not walls to keep love out. They are gates that protect love from being diluted by those who do not understand its value. And the moment you hold that standard, the quality of everything around you shifts. Your conversations deepen, your relationships clarify, your spirit no longer bends under the weight of shallow connections. You are no longer afraid of losing what is not meant to stay. Every great transformation begins with a decision that enough is enough. Enough of tolerating inconsistency disguised as affection. Enough of silencing your voice to keep temporary peace. Enough of shrinking your brilliance to protect fragile egos. The moment you decide that your life will no longer be defined by half-hearted love, you reclaim authority over your destiny. That authority does not make you hard, it makes you whole. Wholeness is the soil where authentic love grows. Psychology teaches us that self-respect commands respect. People mirror back the way you treat yourself. If you allow neglect, it becomes the standard. If you honor your soul, you create a field where only those who can match that energy are able to remain. This is not arrogance, this is alignment. When you embody alignment, the wrong ones fall away, not because you push them out, but because they cannot breathe in the altitude of your truth. The right ones, however, rise to meet you. Strength is not about never needing anyone. It is about never needing someone to complete you. You are already whole. Connection becomes powerful when two whole beings meet, not to fill a void, but to multiply abundance. Love at its highest level is not survival, it is expansion. It does not trap you in fear of loss. It liberates you into a deeper state of life. The deeper you root into your worth, the more life reflects that truth back to you. Opportunities align, relationships refine, energy magnifies, and what once felt like chasing now becomes attracting. Because when you stop running after love and start standing as love, the world cannot help but respond. It bends, it shifts, it rearranges to honor the one who finally chose themselves. When you stop living as a seeker of scraps, you begin living as a carrier of abundance. You no longer beg for fragments of love that barely sustain your heart, because you recognize that your presence itself is a gift. This shift rewires the deepest parts of your mind. The same brain that once accepted crumbs as a feast begins to reject anything less than truth. And the more you choose truth, the less tolerance you have for lies dressed as affection. That intolerance is not bitterness, it is clarity. It is the refusal to confuse attention with care or possession with love. Healing teaches you that not everything that feels good is good for you, and not everything that hurts is meant to break you. Pain can be a teacher, but only if you stop numbing it with distractions and allow it to show you where you abandon yourself. Every time you silence your needs to preserve someone else's comfort, you left a fracture in your spirit. Every time you stayed quiet when your soul screamed for more, you created distance from your own essence. But the moment you choose to stop abandoning yourself, those fractures begin to close. That distance begins to shrink. You remember that loyalty to yourself is the first form of love, and without it, every other bond becomes unstable. This is the power of alignment. It strips away illusions until only what resonates can remain. It makes no room for half love, because half love is not love at all. It dismantles the pattern of tolerating inconsistency, because inconsistency is not passion, it is immaturity. And once your spirit tastes consistency rooted in truth, you will never again confuse chaos with connection. You will never again glorify struggle as proof of worthiness. Real love does not drain, it sustains. It does not consume, it expands. It does not demand that you shrink, it celebrates when you rise. Every standard you hold is not a wall against love, but a declaration of its real meaning. Standards are not rejection, they are protection. They guard you from settling for versions of connection that leave you emptier than you began. They are the fire that burns away everything built on pretense, leaving only what can endure. And as painful as it may feel to let go of what is not aligned, it is far more painful to stay where your soul cannot breathe. The human mind is wired to fear loss, but the deeper truth is that nothing aligned with your highest self is ever truly lost. What falls away is not punishment, it is liberation. It is life clearing the space for what you were always meant to receive. And the moment you stop chasing what resists you, you make room for what runs toward you. This is where love shifts from being something you fight for into something that flows toward you, unforced, unshaken, undeniable. There comes a point when you stop asking, "Am I enough for them?" and you start asking, "Are they aligned with the truth of who I am?" That single question changes everything. It transforms your posture, your decisions, your relationships, because once you know your worth, the question is no longer whether you are enough. It is whether what stands before you is worthy of your presence. And when you finally embody that truth, you stop fearing the empty spaces because you know they are only waiting to be filled with something greater than anything you left behind.